On the morning of June 5, 1976, two Caterpillar D9 bulldozers sat on the crest of the Teton Dam in eastern Idaho. Each machine weighed over 75,000 pounds, and for the next 30 minutes, their operators pushed rock into a whirlpool that had opened on the reservoir side of the dam, knowing that at any second, the ground beneath them could collapse into 80 billion gallons of water. One of those operators was Jay Calderwood, general foreman over excavation for Morrison Knutson. He later said there was only one thought running through his crew's minds: who was going to be a coward and be the first one to quit. Nobody quit, and the dam broke anyway. That morning did not start on the crest of the dam. It started 6.5 hours earlier, in total darkness, with nobody watching. The Teton Dam was a zoned earthfill structure, 305 feet tall and 3,100 feet across, built by Morrison Knutson and Kiewit for the Bureau of Reclamation. It was essentially a carefully layered wall of dirt, clay, and rock, designed to hold back an entire river. The Bureau had started filling the reservoir in October 1975, expecting the reservoir to fill over 3 years. But spring runoff in 1976 came fast and heavy. Between April and June, the water rose 118 feet in 57 days. The solution would have been to open the main outlet gates and slow the rise, but the gates were not operational. Workers were still painting the steel walls around them. The only functioning release could push 850 cubic feet per second. Against 80 billion gallons, that was nothing. From midnight to 7 in the morning on June 5th, not a single Bureau employee or contractor was present at the dam. 2 small leaks had already been logged the day before. Overnight monitoring would have caught what happened next. There was none. Somewhere in those 6 unmonitored hours, water found a path through the dam's core. When workers arrived at 7, they found muddy water seeping from the right side of the dam, about 200 feet below the crest. At any dam, clear seepage is normal. Water finds its way through fill material all the time. But muddy seepage means the dam's core is being eaten from the inside. Soil particles are moving, and once that process starts in an earthfill dam, it accelerates. What stops it is chimney drains and filter zones, engineered layers designed to catch eroding soil before piping spreads. The Teton Dam had none. The reason it had none goes back to what construction crews found when they dug the foundation trench 3 years earlier. They discovered enterable caves running through the volcanic rock beneath the dam site. One measured 11 feet wide and 100 feet long. Inside another, the walls were covered in stalactites and stalagmites, mineral formations that proved water had been flowing through this rock for thousands of years. The rock was Huckleberry Ridge Tuff, a formation from a Yellowstone supervolcano eruption 2 million years ago, riddled with cooling joints up to 4 inches wide. Pump-in tests showed water losses of up to 460 gallons per minute. That was the moment to redesign the dam with proper drainage and filters. The Bureau did not, and they had every reason to know what would happen, because it had already happened before. In 1965, their own Fontenelle Dam in Wyoming had nearly failed through the exact same mechanism. Water piped through fractured rock and eroded a cavity 60 feet wide, 50 feet deep, and 200 feet long. Only emergency drawdown saved it. The Army Corps of Engineers studied Fontenelle, identified the failure mode, and installed filters and drains at all their dams going forward. That was the fix. The Bureau chose not to adopt it. Their chief engineer wrote a journal article about Fontenelle that barely mentioned the actual failure. When Bureau designers working on Teton were asked after the collapse what they knew about Fontenelle, they said they had heard it had an incident. None of them knew the details. If you've ever worked on an earthfill dam or watched one leak, you know what muddy seepage means. Like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments if you have ever seen a dam leak in person and what happened next. So by 7 in the morning on June 5th, every layer of defense that could have stopped this had already been removed. The foundation was never redesigned. The filters were never installed. The warnings were never heard. A USGS geologist named David Schleicher had written a memo about this exact scenario back in December 1972. He even suggested placing cameras at the dam to document a potential failure. His supervisors forced 6 months of rewrites until the language was stripped of all urgency. By the time it reached the Bureau, it said nothing. Bureau employee Jan Ringel called his colleague Pete Aberle around 8:20. Project construction engineer Robert Robison arrived from Rexburg around 9. According to his nephew, speaking to East Idaho News decades later, Robison was fairly certain by 9 that morning that the dam was going to collapse. An immediate evacuation of the downstream communities could have saved every life that was lost that day. Robison decided against it because he did not want to cause a panic. By 9:20, the leak at the base had doubled. At 10:15, a wet spot on the downstream face erupted into active erosion. At 10:30, Robison tried the only option he had left. He ordered bulldozers. A Caterpillar D8 and an International TD-15 began pushing embankment material into the expanding hole on the downstream face. At 10:43, more than 2 hours after the first muddy seepage was noted, Robison called the county sheriffs. He told them there was a possibility the dam might go, but it would go slowly. It did not go slowly. This is the kind of story that disappears if nobody watches it. Like and subscribe. The D8 on the downstream face suddenly sank into the dam up to its belly pan. A second machine was brought to pull it free. Minutes later, the ground swallowed both. Concrete Superintendent Lou Payne watched the water take those cats like they were Tinker toys. The 2 operators were hauled to safety by ropes tied around their waists. One of them was a man named Jack McGraw. The machines on the downstream face had failed. The erosion was moving faster than the equipment could fill. Up on the crest, Calderwood and operator Owen Daly tried the next option. They pushed the dam's own riprap, 3-foot boulders from the upstream face, into a whirlpool that was growing wider with every pass. Every pass, you would wonder if it would be the last one, Calderwood recalled in 1977 for the BYU Idaho Oral History program. We knew we were working right on top of the leak. At 11:45, Excavation Superintendent John Belaganti felt the dam settle about 5 feet beneath his boots. He waved the operators back. There was nothing left to try. Calderwood and Daly reversed their D9s along the crest in first gear, while the dam collapsed in front of them. It caved in right in front of us, Calderwood said. While we were backing away, we kept thinking it was going to cave in behind us and take us with it. But it never did. At 11:57, the crest gave way completely. Peak flow hit 2.3 million cubic feet per second, greater than the discharge of any river on Earth except the Amazon. A wall of water 50 to 75 feet high tore through the canyon at 27 miles per hour. It hit the town of Wilford 8 miles downstream, around 12:30. 120 of the town's 154 homes were swept off their foundations. 5 people died there, including 2 brothers who drove to their in-laws' house to save belongings. Their father-in-law saw the wave and screamed, "Get out!" One of them answered, "We have time." They stayed 1 minute too long. Sugar City was struck around 1 in the afternoon. The governor flew over and said part of Sugar City is there, and part of it is just gone. Rexburg, population 9,000, flooded to 8 feet by 2:30. Logs from a lumber yard struck a gasoline storage tank and ignited flaming slicks across the floodwaters. 2/3 of the city's residents lost their homes. The reason the death toll stayed at 11 was a radio station owner named Don Ellis. He drove to the dam on his own and broadcast live as it crumbled, telling listeners the whole north side was caving in and that water was coming in monumental amounts. He stayed on the air until floodwaters killed power to his transmitter at 2:40 in the afternoon. 10 of the 11 victims had been warned. The one who received no warning was a 21-year-old fisherman named David Benson, standing on a river island with no radio. The dam was never rebuilt. 2/3 of the embankment still stands in that canyon today, untouched for almost 50 years. The 2 bulldozers that were swallowed on the downstream face were never recovered. They vanished into 50 million cubic meters of sediment spread across 300 square miles. Here is what the economics of this failure look like. The Teton Dam was built to irrigate 111,000 acres of farmland, provide flood control, and generate hydropower for eastern Idaho. It never irrigated a single acre. It never generated a single kilowatt. It served its purpose for 0 days. Instead, the government processed 7,563 damage claims over the next 11 years, paying out $322 million. That was more than 3 times what the dam cost to build, paid out for a structure that never delivered anything. Owen Daly, the operator who reversed his D9 off the collapsing crest and then climbed into another machine to keep pushing dirt, died of a heart attack roughly 1 year later. Jay Calderwood lived to tell the story. When asked why he stayed on the dam as long as he did, his answer was simple. We knew if we didn't get it stopped, what would happen. They could not stop it. Because the real failure at the Teton Dam did not happen on June 5, 1976. It happened every time someone had the answer and chose not to use it. In a foundation that should have been redesigned. In a report from Fontenelle that should have been shared. In a warning memo that should have been delivered as written. The bulldozers on the crest that morning were the last in a long line of fixes that came too late or never came at all. Like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments where you are watching from.